topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to Mindset Marketing Mastery, the show that brings you the top speakers in the marketing and video industry. With your host, Marie Mason.
Hi, and welcome to Liberty Virtual Solutions. We present our podcast series called Marketing Mindset Mastery Radio Show. I am your host, Marie Mason, and my lovely and talented co-host Sheryl Berstein will be joining us in January. She's been a little bit swamped during the holiday season. So today we have another amazing show for you with a fantastic speaker who's going to talk to us about a specific particular topic. And that topic is creating business boundaries. Okay, say that 20 times with a straight face. So that will be something we'll be talking about shortly. But in the meantime, I just wanted to let you know that some of the stuff I had planned for, I wanted to discuss a little bit different topic, and that is, do you ever have situations where you have an emergency going on and you're not sure if you can really conduct business in a normal manner? Well, I bring that up because this December, I ended up getting COVID at the beginning of the month, and thankfully I'm over it and healthy and back on track. But it really took me that I really had to really juggle because some days I had no energy to conduct phone calls and do my normal activities. So my question to you is, do you have an emergency plan? Do you know what to do if something should ever happen to you? God forbid if you go to the hospital or if you have any kind of an emergency that just pops up. Let's face it, life happens, right? So you need to have a plan and you need to be able to know how to um, execute that plan and who's in charge while you're gone. You need to have somebody in place. If you ever need an emergency person, contact my agency, Liberty Virtual Solutions. We not only have, people who can help you with the marketing and the virtual events, we have some folks that are just regular everyday virtual assistants and business managers. So if you need help with your business during emergencies, please don't hesitate to contact me. I would be happy to help you during those situations as well as normal business activities. So don't hesitate to reach out to people like us. We're here to help you. Okay. And now that this is the end of the month, I cannot believe we're at that time where we're starting New Year's. And I'm so ready to ring in New Year's. I don't know about you. 2020 has been both positive and negative, and the virus has thrown everybody off. But let me tell you, 2021 brings some hope, okay? And oh my gosh, we have so many goals to accomplish. I don't know about you. I've got tons of goals. Well, I always have goals, but that's a different story. So my so I'm wondering, are you running in circles because you don't know what to do first with your goals? I mean, that's people kind of get stuck because they haven't really thought it out. And if you have a lot of things that are running in your head that you want to get done and want to be able to create, want to make happen, but you can't get focused on how to begin, oh my gosh, or what is the next step to take? And do you find yourself at the end of the day saying, where did my day go? I didn't feel like I got anything done and that I wanted to get done. I mean, so much of us have had that experience because, sometimes, let's face it, life gets busy and working from home more than ever, we have lots of interruptions. So it's harder to realize that you got something done for your business, right? So we have a perfect gift for you. It is a workbook. It is a goal setting workbook. It's going to help you um, get more things done in a much easier way. So with it and having giving you a clear crystal plan for how to accomplish your goals. It's going to start with things like simple as the 3 strategies, which is that long-term, short-term, and midterm goals. Sorry, I'm not putting them in order. Um, it's also going to help you really do the SMART goal setting. It's going to do the a really clear you can really know what to do and get the steps to help you achieve what you're trying to accomplish. And it's going to give you daily action steps. Oh my gosh, it is something that I have been using for better part of 20 some years, and it has helped me realize this TV show. It's helped me realize all sorts of goals and dreams of mine have come true because I've developed a really clear action plan, and I use this workbook myself. So there you go. So my the detailed this is such a detailed goal setting workbook, and it's going to provide you so much clear action steps that you can apply now in any area of your life, not just even your business. It could be any part of your life. So by using this workbook, you're going to gain so much clarity in prioritizing your goals and being able to have clear action steps to follow. And you're going to really be appreciative of this gift that I'm going to give you. It is normally valued probably around, I'd say, between $37 to $97. It is going to be given to you for free during the holidays because I like to be generous. Okay. So here is the link. It's https colon / bit bit.ly / 37POMZD. And I will make sure that you all will get the links in our social media posts, okay? So you're probably asking me, how does this relate to the topic to this episode? Well, you might have a challenging customer or client that's demanding your time and always wants things done yesterday, right? And the topic about today is about setting boundaries with your clients or customers at work. And goodness, even though we're working from home, there's still those boundaries that you need to be clear about, right? Because you still have your home life and you have your business life. And sometimes you have to wear your business hat, sometimes you have to wear your home hat. And sometimes they kind of are hard to separate. So you need to be able to have those clear boundaries. And I thought this was a perfect show to set us up for success in 2021. Okay. So um wanted to welcome you guys to the Marketing Mindset Mastery Radio Show. And our next guest is Luke, and he will have to help me pronounce it, Schmeiser. And he helps tech founders in large companies launch new products quickly. And he's also the author of a number one best-selling book called Launch Tomorrow. And he's originally from Poland and grew up in Philly and also lived in London for 14 years. And today he's going to dig into the topic of creating creative business boundaries. I think that's supposed to be creating business boundaries, but maybe he can make that more clear to us. So take it away, Luke. Are you here?
Yes. Hi, Marie.
Hi, how are you doing? Sorry for the long introduction and the little bantering at the beginning, but I always like to give my audience something to look forward to, something like a gift or something at the beginning of the show. So anyway,
Sure.
so yeah. Now let's just make sure I got it correct. Is it creative business boundaries or creating business boundaries?
Creating creative business boundaries, I think.
Okay, I just had to make sure. Sometimes I play with my words, and sometimes they don't come out quite as well as they look better on paper than when you say them, if that makes sense.
Sure, yeah.
So anyway, so I was going to ask you, what made you choose your career path? I mean, you clearly have a lot of talents and a lot of skills, and if you could give us a quick, short summary of that, that'll be great.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, as you mentioned, I've lived in a couple of different parts of the world, and I'm basically like a serial immigrant. And every time that you change countries, it for a longer period. I mean, it's one thing to go on vacation, even for like a month or so, but it's another thing to live somewhere.
Right.
And each time you change cultures, I mean, it's like all of your assumptions start to be challenged about what's normal, what's expected, and oh, I can't get cheddar cheese here, that kind of thing. And yeah, it got to a point where I enjoy it. I enjoy adapting to situations, and in fact, I get bored when things are a bit too stable. And eventually, I just kind of realized that innovation is a part of business where you've got to basically do the same kind of thing. Like you need to adapt to new markets, new situations, figure out how to do something with a new service or a new product. And I felt totally at home. So that's pretty much how I ended up in innovation.
Well, that's good. And so it sounds like you're really, really passionate about that.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I think what I find really exciting about it is that it's this constant source of hope and excitement of creating something totally new and introducing it to the world in one form or another. And in my view, it brings out the best in people. The creativity, empathy with others, getting organized, coming up with completely new things. So yeah, and I think the other part of it that's really, I think, important to me is that for me personally, it helps me focus on more positive things, even when you do have a pandemic and doom scrolling and even, to be honest, even before the pandemic, it was kind of a good counterbalance to the kind of negative bias of the news, so to speak. So
Yeah, I totally understand that. Yeah, it's amazing how 2020 has just shaped and changed everybody's world and just flipped it on the side of the head, so to speak. But we're a strong, resilient race as far as everybody race as in the human race. So we're gonna beat this, and we'll be gonna be laughing about it in a few years. I'm pretty sure by now. So
yeah, I
we're
hope so.
like all those funny masks, and stuff. It used to be a mandatory thing, and now we've made it a fashion statement. I don't know. I know we're gonna be dating this series because of this topic, but oh my gosh, I think it's hilarious. Now people are like color coding their masks with their outfits. It's like an accessory now. It's hilarious. Oh, you have a cute mask. I don't know about you if it goes on in your area, if they do that, but we do here.
Yeah, I mean, people are adapting. It's exactly what I mean, I actually recently started getting more self-conscious about the color of my mask and my clothes. So, so I
Well, you're
think,
adapting too.
yeah, exactly. It's like,
I go whatever's clean. That's what I That's my theory anyway, and I'm sticking to it. So anyway, how did you get interested in creating creative boundaries? I mean, obviously you have a story behind there. You want to give us a brief background about that?
yeah, sure. So I, so basically, I went from a situation where, as an immigrant kid, we didn't have very much, and plus, I think even 30 some years ago, it was kind of different. Whereas now, there's just so much of everything everywhere, and it just feels like everyone's drowning in junk, and both in terms physical terms, in terms of like toys and that kind of thing, but also there's just so much information and spam and it's just this overload, and to be honest, as far as anybody can tell, there's only going to be even more of it. So it just became a situation where it really feels like it's a kid in a candy store problem for entrepreneurs, where you've just got so many options, you don't know what to do, what to keep, what to focus on, because there's so many other things. and
Easily
and
distracted. That'd be a good
eas-
way of putting that.
yeah, easily distracted. And I think I realized that actually, if you have very clear priorities, it makes it easier to not be too distracted. But then once you do decide on those priorities, you've got to make it, to kind of operationalize it. You've got to put boundaries around things to make sure that you only do focus on those priorities. And yeah, and this skill the skill of focusing on is just absolutely critical. Because it, if you set the boundaries clearly, it makes it a lot easier to then hold yourself accountable to them. So that's more or less how I got interested in boundaries, because they just helped me focus when there is so many things going on, both in terms of time and money and what I do. Yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, I'm still establishing boundaries. I told my husband and son, says, I have a call and then I had to record. So they're like, okay, we'll go upstairs because I got them trained. It's only taken me 3 years to get them trained where if I'm on a live show or if I have to do some kind of recording or call, I pretty much don't have my office is but I was laughing earlier because you said how we were got some clutter and stuff like that. And I'm like, I'm digging out of clutter. So that is my goal for 2021 is just purge the clutter that we don't need and give it a new home and that way we have some more space to have a nice office and stuff. But oh my gosh, that's why I was laughing because I was like, oh, I relate to this so well. But as far as the boundaries, it's establishing that time frame in which is a good time to talk to people because you have those hours and you have to work and have concentrated time. And then you have to have pockets of time to do different tasks. And if someone's calling you, like my mom was calling me right before the show because normally I do this on Thursdays. This is not our normal. We're pre-recording this a little ahead of time, and so it's not my normal time frame. And I'm here like, I have to remember to tell her after 7 o'clock is usually a good time to call me. But it's establishing those boundaries with even your family and your friends because they can distract you as quickly as a box of papers that are like calling your name saying you need to sort through me or a task that needs to be done for a client um or your own business. I mean, am I preaching to the choir about this or is this kind of on point here?
It's,
So
yeah, I mean, certainly time boxing is a key part of it. I mean, I was having a discussion earlier today with a friend of mine, and it was just a discussion about, if you know what your priorities are, then make sure you actually do set aside time on the calendar and put the boundaries around that time to make sure you have the time to do it. Because otherwise, you're just doing like the mechanical things that you do every day, and time just goes by. And that's kind of a good way of setting boundaries. But I mean, the way that I think about setting boundaries is about like discovering little rules that I want to apply. And I mean, you can use this with time, you can do it with clutter, whatever, like figure out what are the things that you want to keep, and and more importantly, what are the things that you want to get rid of in terms of like types of stuff. And then
right.
once you have those rules clear, it makes it a lot easier when you're looking through things because you already know either in your head, or if you really want to get systematic about it, you can write them out. But and then okay, this is in, this is out, and then just getting rid of a whole bunch of things that are clearly not really useful anymore. Like, for example, books about, I don't know, applying for college 20 years ago, or
Certainly it won't be relevant for today because the process is probably totally changed. I mean,
yeah,
most of
yeah,
that's
but that,
online anyway. So yeah.
well, exactly, or or things like, travel books from a while ago, which you tend to keep around. Like, these are things which recently I was talking with some family members that that they're storing and keeping around, and it's like, well, you don't really need them. So yeah, so these rules kind of help give you a certain structure, and then it just, once you have less things, it's easier to focus on what you have left. And then sometimes you want to add one or two more rules and make that even smaller and even smaller, and then eventually you get to something that's not only manageable but pleasant and a lot easier to work with. So
Right. So they basically help you be more productive, it sounds like.
there's definitely a productivity aspect to it. I mean, I think another way of also thinking about it is from the creative point of view. Like, I think with when you are creating something new, I mean, I'm an author, but I mean, I also know many other artists who work with different forms. And like, so for example, with writing, like you can have any number of words in any order, and like if a monkey sits at a keyboard, eventually they're going to type Shakespeare if they put enough,
Effort into it.
if
Yeah.
they put enough effort into it and they type long enough, they'll eventually get there. But that's not the point, right? So if you put boundaries on it and you figure out, well, what kind of thing am I trying to create, and then how does that need to work, and what are the boundaries around that, and then you make it smaller and smaller and smaller, and that actually helps you get away from this completely blank page, which people find overwhelming, like writer's block. That if you make it the more precise you make it, it actually becomes easier to create. Whereas if you have all of your options open, it's overwhelming, and then you can find it kind of difficult to work with, basically, from a creative standpoint.
Sort of take it in bite-sized pieces, so to speak. Yeah.
Bite-sized, but also try to deliberately be
Focused.
be cutting out the things which you don't want to do. So
Right.
if you don't know what you do want to do, then just keep cutting out everything that you don't want to do, and then eventually you get a small enough thing that it becomes manageable and actionable, and you can move ahead with it, and come up
Getting
and
clarity on the one task you really want to focus on. Sometimes that's just an eye opener for somebody right there. So I think we have time before we go into the break to get into one more question, and
sure.
then we'll go into a quick break and then come back because you've agreed to stick around. So that's awesome to share more information. But my I guess my other question is, why are boundaries so important? And for innovation and creativity. I think we're sort of leading into that one with the line of questioning we've been talking about anyway. So
Yeah. So because they force you to be resourceful. So these rules, when you have less, you've got to come up with new ways of getting around them or staying within them. But that's when you create kind of something new, and you can. They also help you make decisions. So for example, a really common pattern in workshops that I do is that first I try to get everybody to generate as many ideas and options as they possibly can, and then like almost like on a blank canvas, lots of post-its, that kind of thing, and then after that you kind of start applying rules and prioritizing, and you converge down to the one or two things that you really want to do. And yeah, it's that same kind of process. That, I mean, it could even apply for something like buying a stock on the stock market. Like there's thousands of possible things you can invest in, but how do you figure out which one and when and that kind of thing? Well, it's the same process. Like figure out the rules, put your constraints. What are you looking at, and then that way just choose that. Sometimes boundaries are exposed externally, like you don't actually have the agency to do it yourself. So like COVID is a great example. Or for example, if you're working as an employee, what your boss expects of you. There's not that much you can do about it. You can kind of negotiate a little bit, but there's just the employer's rules are the employer's rules. You either accept them or leave, basically, if it
that's true.
bothers you enough. And yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think you have that power. I think this is particularly as a creative person, you have that power to choose what those boundaries are, and that's part of the creative process, I think. And so, for example, this year, I decided I wanted to explore audio a lot more. So before I was mostly just writing textually, and this year I've been exploring podcasts, and here I am on the radio, and so this was kind of part of my own creative process of trying to create content in different forms, basically. So as a creative boundary.
Awesome. No, that was very helpful, and you definitely have agreed to stick around. And we're gonna actually hold on a second. I had to do something real quick before I forgot that. And so basically, I loved how you put that as far as, I think that's going to set us up really well for the second segment because you have some more great information to share for us too. So let me just sorry, I am normally right on point this evening and in the evenings, but I think I'm normally scheduled at a certain time and I'm a little thrown off today. I don't know if about you, but sometimes when you're not on your normal schedule, you get a little thrown off. So, I do want to thank Luke for sharing that valuable tips to our audience about growing their business in their Marketing Mindset Mastery radio show, especially on the topic on creating creative boundaries. And Lucas agreed to stick around for the second segment of our show, which will help us teach us what it is to make it hard to stick to boundaries and how you can apply boundaries in practice and other wonderful great tips. So that ends this segment of our show. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Marketing Mindset Mastery Radio Show with your host Marie Mason, and we will go for a commercial break now.
We're taking a short break, and we'll be right back. You're listening to Marketing Mindset Mastery, the show that brings you the top speakers in the marketing and video industry, with your host, Marie Mason. The show is brought to you by Liberty Virtual Solutions. We work with business coaches and speakers to help them market and host their webinars and upsell their coaching programs and develop heart-centered relationships with their audience. Welcome back to the Marketing Mindset Mastery Show with your host, Marie Mason, a premier podcast that helps you master your marketing skills.
Hi, and welcome back to Liberty Virtual Solutions. We present our podcast series called Marketing Mindset Mastery Radio Show. I am your host, Marie Mason. Joining us today is an amazing speaker who is Luke Szyrmer. Hopefully I pronounced it correctly. And he is talking about creating boundaries in the workplace. So are you here again?
Yes.
Sorry.
Hello.
Yeah, it puts us in the green room when we're on break. So we're in the waiting room when the doing the commercial break. So boy, we did an amazing section about talking about the boundaries and so forth. And we're going to go into a couple more questions. Then I think you have a gift for our audience as well. So we'll share that at the end. Let me just find my place today. Like I said, I'm little thrown off today with our schedule. So we had talked about before our break about why boundaries are so important in innovative and creativity. And I loved how you said it's because we're resourceful and it helps us make decisions and so many other great tips. So that leads me to the next question, which is how do you set boundaries around your schedule? Because let's face it, we only have 24 hours in a day and we need at least seven to 8 of those for sleep. So how do you do it? How do you create those boundaries in your schedule?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's time to get real in terms of the
Real
device.
life, right?
Yeah. So I think the key point really here is that no one's ever going to value your time more than you do, and you don't want to overvalue it, but also at the same time you do want to value it enough that you can do everything else. And I think the starting point is knowing what you want, and then looking at your schedule and seeing how those priorities are reflected. So I think everything kind of flows from there. So for me personally, I try to set it up so that my day is structured around, for example, my energy level throughout the day. So I try to write or create in the morning, and then I have more meetings and relating with other people in the afternoon. It can tie to when I lock my office door.
You actually have a door to lock, huh?
Yeah, well, I think with a 6-year-old, it helps. I mean, especially when she was younger, I think at this point, I think similar to you, actually. I think she understands that when the door is closed, Daddy isn't available. That kind of thing.
I have a 14-year-old, so he's a little more understanding now.
Gets better over time, huh?
It does. It really does. I'm encouraging you there on that one. So, but yeah, so once you close the door, then what happens? What's your schedule like at that point? I mean, do you have like certain tasks that you do at certain times? Do you have like a set pattern, or how does that work?
It I think the key is that I try to minimize context switching within the day. So that I actually do have big blocks, and I try to keep each day as focused on one thing as I can, because I think that each time that I completely change what I'm doing to different, even different projects or clients, like it does take a while to get back on track. And if I can, I try to make it so that I spend the whole day just writing or just editing one particular thing, and it really
Focused
helps.
work,
Absolutely.
like a block of focused work.
Yeah,
That's what it
and
sounds like.
if I can make it the whole day, if not, then at least a good 3 hours where it's a block, and then that way I can actually get to a much better place than I was when I start. Whereas if I'm switching in and out, and in fact sometimes I have these days. Today was kind of like that, where I had a lot of different things going on, and it's just sometimes you can't completely plan for everything, but
You have to be able to flip the switch sometimes quickly in those cases, right?
yeah. But if I can, I do try to make that structure to be there, and speak with everyone who I need to make that possible. So, and for the time being, I mean, it gives me the right combination of flexibility and structure to be able to be productive and come up with new things. So
Yeah, I get that. And I'm one of those creative minds too. And sometimes I find myself up until like 2 in the morning because my brain does not shut down like normal people do.
mm,
Most people shut down somewhere between 9 and 11 o'clock, or 9 and midnight. And I'm like, my brain is still going after midnight because I'll get my second wind around 11 o'clock, and I'll go until 1 o'clock. And I'm really trying to retrain my brains because I want to set those boundaries so I get more sleep, because I notice I'm more productive when I've had rest and when I take care of myself. But that's a subject matter for another day. But you had mentioned something about contact switching. Could you explain that a little bit? Because not everybody may understand that term.
sure. So it's context switching. Sorry, I didn't say it very clearly. So by context switching, I mean being in one context where you're deep into one particular thing or one particular project, one particular client, and then you quickly have to change because something else comes up or the hour's up, and you move on to something else, and basically being pulled out of that context, and then either deciding to, or more likely actually being distracted either internally or externally, and completely changing, like thinking about something else. And so I think in a more practical sense, for example, if you have a to-do list that like has lots of
Mile
different,
long.
long, but also from many different things that are
True.
going on, then it could even be like if it's 100 things all from one project, as opposed to from 15 different projects, the one with 15 is going to have a lot more context switching because you've got to switch between them all the time.
Right.
And then for you to readjust your bearings, so it just takes some time. So I think the stat that seems to come up in the context of computer programming is that if you get somebody knocked off of what they're deeply in, it takes about, I think, 27 minutes for them to get fully back into the particular thing they were doing. And I think it's true of I feel it's similar when I'm writing, that if I'm deeply in the middle of editing something and someone comes and starts talking to me about some day-to-day thing, yeah, of course I can switch, but then it just takes me a
Sometimes
while
that
to
happens.
really, and then that time is lost, that time of re-switching the context back to what I was doing. So the less of that context switching that you have, the more you can kind of just flow down one particular direction and then get a lot more done creatively.
No, I understand that completely. I have some friends, and even my husband uh, sometimes it's about a personality type too. So, for example, I am an extrovert. My husband and my friends and my web developer, for example, is one of my dear friends. They're introverts. And one of the things I've noticed is with introverts, it takes them longer to get going. But once they're in the zone, they're focused and they stay focused. But if they get distracted, it takes them that much longer to get back to the project, which sounds like what you're talking about. Whereas extroverts, sometimes we can switch gears a little bit faster, which helps when you're a mom because sometimes you're in mom mode and then you have to go back and rethink about, and hopefully you can remember everything you just was trying to say before you got interrupted. I don't know if anyone can relate, but I mean that's what it sounds to me like it was what you from what you were saying. Am I on point on that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly it.
Yeah,
Um,
just as an example. So yeah. So no, yeah, real life is very interesting sometimes when you're working from home.
yeah, yeah,
Days, you
yeah.
know? Well, that leads me to the other question is what makes it hard to stick to boundaries from at least from your experience? I mean, I'm sure there's situations where you you can't avoid situations. So could you give me some examples? I know I gave you a couple just now, but I mean, could
Sure, sure. I mean, I think the hardest thing initially was just being self-aware enough to be able to define them in the first place. So if I don't know what my boundaries are, then I'm gonna either cross them myself or have other people cross them. And I think that's kind of, it took a while before I realized that was the case. And it makes it a lot easier to then, hold yourself or others accountable if you know what they are, obviously. And then and people can be very well-meaning, but they may be stepping over lines that they don't see because you don't see them. I think another thing that makes it hard is kind of I think, at least in my case, like wanting to help others so much that I was ignoring my own needs, and then if I kept doing it for long enough, then I'd get angry. So
it
it's
happens to the best of us, you know?
it yeah, but and I think this is the kind of thing where if you do know what those boundaries are, it makes it easier to prevent that from happening because you at least
Are aware.
escalate, you're aware of it, and then you can also, I think more importantly, confront whoever you need to prevent that from spending 3 months trying to help someone who actually doesn't want your help,
Exactly.
that kind of thing. And yeah, I think there's also a skill that needs to be in place that I had to acquire over time. So basically knowing how to stand up for yourself in a way that's respectful of others and yourself, and not avoiding conflict. I think naturally I'm a bit more of a conflict avoider. And
It's natural. So yeah.
yeah, well,
Because conflict's uncomfortable, so it's very natural to feel like you want to avoid it. So I get that. But you do have to do, like you said, have to address certain issues, and there's a way to do it in a proper, calm manner without getting too flustered
worked up.
with somebody.
Yeah.
So, which is what you were trying to explain. So, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I think it is a personality thing too. Like there's some people that are naturally very, let's say, aggressive, and they automatically go and have the conflict, but then they don't have this type of issue. I think on my end it was more the other extreme. So naturally I'd be more trying to avoid them, but that's not healthy either. And I think
it's a
it's
balance.
it is a balance, and it depends on the particular situation, which is why it takes some self-awareness to be able to know where and how to escalate things, and to do that. Um, what else in terms of making it hard to stick to them? I mean, this is all kind of, I guess, my evolution. I guess this is pretty much what I'm describing in terms of the order in which I realized this stuff. And yeah, I think The truth of the matter is I still fall into these traps, but at least now I can see them in
And
advance.
being self-aware is half the battle because, um, there's I can't remember, I think it was Robert Kiyosaki, and I cannot remember which book it was, but he talked about the 4 window panes. I don't know if you're familiar with that, and it's how people things that and I'm probably not putting them in the correct order, so just don't blame me, go read the book, it'll give the better explanation, but it's the things that you know of that nobody else does, it's the things that other people see that you don't see, and then there's a couple others where they're sort of like in between those 2 points, and it's and the 4th window pane really is the one where it's the people that other people see that you don't see. So,
Yeah.
and like I said, there's like 4 of them, and there's 2 that are like sort of in between those things. So, I think that's sort of what we're leaning towards in that respect. I mean, because there are things that we see our clients and the people that we work with doing that they may not be aware of. And yet they're the same way. They see things that we don't see. So, and then we just have to be able to learn to handle the conflict resolutions calmly and effectively, and also so that it's a win win. And then there's other aspects to that as well. I'm sure that I could probably be a whole new topic for a whole new episode. I'm sure we'll get into that in another episode, which is conflict resolution is I think one that came up on a show, and if not, it needs to because because it's definitely something that needs to be happening at some point in a discussion on down the road. But it does lead me to another question, so, and bear with me, I am just losing my spot today. So,
Yeah, I mean, on the conflict resolution point, I mean, I think that's leadership, right? I
right,
think great leaders are that's their main role, and you
right,
do it for yourself, but you can also do it for groups, and yeah, that's basically what that is, I think.
true. No, I mean, and you're right because leaders have to wear many hats, and one of the things that they have to do is be able to handle conflict between themselves or our clients or customers, and be able to make sure that everyone walks away with a win-win situation as much as possible. And sometimes you can don't. Sometimes there's traps, that are there some traps that you have in there that you're aware of? I think
Um,
it was in our discussion notes. I was just kind of making sure I touched on that because you said you fall into some traps sometimes.
I think, yeah, I mean, I think in terms of traps, I think that's I kind of mentioned them when in terms of what's my own evolution, like the main ones that I fell into
Okay.
in the what makes it hard to stick. So yeah, like for example, wanting to help others so much, and then being annoyed that they don't don't quite really. I mean, they appreciate it, but they don't actually need
Don't
the help.
reciprocate. They don't reciprocate
Yeah,
the same
not
way.
even reciprocate, but it's just yeah, like and at the end of the day, it's my own doing, right?
Right.
So
Your expectations are different than what the other person's perceiving. Does that
mhm.
sound right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's the expectations, and it's kind of if you avoid raising boundaries and or at least pointing out that you're crossing. Well, first of all, being aware of your own boundaries, but if you feel someone is going too far in terms of what they expect of you, then that's a boundary of yours that you should verbalize, respectfully, of course, but it's very much tied with that, I think. So,
Makes a good point.
um,
Mhm. No, that's awesome. I mean, and it's hard, and sometimes it's just a matter of being aware of it and being able to know how to handle it. So, which brings me to the next question. How can you apply boundaries in practice as far as in the work setting?
So I think this usually the moment I start thinking about this is when I start feeling overwhelmed for whatever reason, and at that point I start looking for anything that I don't need, or that I don't need right now, or that isn't an absolute must-have or a no-brainer. And these are all things that I just try to either give away, delegate, or just get rid of in some as as an environmentally friendly way as I can.
The best we could do this day and age, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like within reason. Yeah. So, for example, another kind of cue for me personally that I've discovered that works well is whenever I spend a lot of time looking for something around the house, it's a signal that I've got too much stuff, and that I need to apply more boundaries to my stuff, and but both office and personal things. And I am a little absent-minded by nature, so that it doesn't that obviously doesn't help. But if I am actually spending 10 minutes finding my keys, it's like, okay. it means yeah. There's just too many things, yeah. I think the other thing, kind of looping back to what you were saying at the top, I mean, in terms of setting positive goals, which I think are absolutely critical in terms of knowing what you want. Another thing that I found helpful, which someone suggested at some point, was to stop doing goals. So things that I explicitly decide that I don't want to do anymore, because it opens up a lot of time. Like, I remember I was spending a lot of time volunteering with a certain organization related to public speaking for a few years, and at a certain point it was just like I'd already given a lot back to that particular community, and it was just time for me to move on. And then suddenly, when I stopped doing it, it's like, wow, what was I doing all these evenings?
I get that totally. I relate. But we're down to the last couple minutes of our show, and I know you have something special you wanted to share with our audiences. Do you want to share with that real quick?
Yeah, sure. So on the day the show is going out, I am discounting my book down to 99 cents. Normally sells for $5. This is the best-selling book about landing page testing and idea testing for innovation purposes, when you're coming up with a new service or product, how to get that out into the market quickly, and get feedback from users in a structured way. So,
and what's the link? Do you want to share that link?
Yes. So the link is a book.launchtomorrow.com, and that'll redirect to Amazon, where you can get it.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you for that gift. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for all of your great tips, and I loved our little bantering there for a while. So definitely do take advantage of his book that's going to be offered at 99 cents. I'm going to be saving my money for that, because that sounds like a book I need. So anyway, we really hope that you enjoyed this episode of Marketing Mindset Mastery with our guest, Luke. And is it Szyrmer? I hope I pronounced it.
Szyrmer.
I apologize.
Yeah, you're right.
I was pretty close. I was getting there. So, and then please join us for our next episode for great tips on and how-tos and how making your marketing and your mindset work for you. And I want to encourage you to take advantage of Luke's offer at https://book.launchtomorrow.com and remember that we go on the air every Thursday live at 6 p.m. Eastern, right here on W4CY.com radio. So until next time, this is Marie Mason, and Sheryl Berstein will be with us in January, and saying goodbye for now. And Happy New Year, everybody, and enjoy 2021, setting all those wonderful goals. And this is all from Marketing Mindset Mastery Radio Show. We love you, and make sure that you subscribe to our channel. Take care. Bye-bye.
Go to our radio page and check out the gifts from our speakers. We'll see you next time on Marketing Mindset Mastery with your host, Marie Mason.